Why Obsidian is the best all-in-one tool you could use. Now, this is a video I was not planning, so the editing's not going to be there and anything like that. I almost was going to do a live stream, but I wanted to get this idea out in the world, so it's just going to be extra bonus. If it's a little bit sloppy, I'm sorry. I just wanted to kind of talk about this and see if any of you have similar opinions or ideas that we can share. So I've been looking for the all-in-one tool out there, right? I've been thinking about knowledge management, task management, and project management for the last 15 years, trying to figure out like what can I do to plan out my content and plan out my modular degree and plan out just my life in general. And so I use Google Calendar. I used to use like tasks built into Google a little bit, but I never got around to doing it very much because it was out of my way. And it was interesting to me to think about like what could be a tool that could be all in one. And especially when it came to project management, I was trying to find what the best tool was for content creation. And so I was jumping around between Notion and Capacities, Acrium, and all these different jazzes. And I found myself really anchoring towards Obsidian. And more, with more features coming out, Obsidian has become the all-in-one tool. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because not enough people are talking about it. I have a blog post that I'll link down below that I talked about it a little bit, and I have a few ideas for real posts, not like sloppy, quickly made ones like this, but real posts in mind where I wanted to talk about this concept of Obsidian being the all-in-one, the like coveted all-in-one. And the real big kicker is you have to use plugins. That's a given, but which plugins and which ones are the best ones? And there's probably also some native features that it can come out with, like a calendar, that would be really helpful. Really, even right now, even with the prismatic one and the remake of the full calendar, and there was one other one that came out recently, between those three, none of them are that good still. And the big calendar has been broken ever since I ever discovered Obsidian. The old full calendar plugin has been broken ever since I discovered Obsidian, and none of the other plugins ever worked. So literally, the prismatic one is probably the closest. I think there was one new version of the full calendar that's kind of decent, but none of them are actually that great, and they're only one way. And so you can only really come in with the ICS from Google or Apple and see your stuff on the calendar, but you can't interact with it, which means it also doesn't interact with tasks, and that prevents you from using it. And in my case, I don't have Obsidian Sync on my devices, so I can't even use it on my phone yet. So that's one aspect I need to like really get on and fix, because Obsidian Sync is so important. However, sync never really worked for me with my size of vault. So either it's gotten better and I can try it again, or I can try a different alternative. So syncing across devices is one thing, but having it local first, that's another. That's kind of like the first step when it came to this all-in-one tool. What's next? What else do you need? Well, project management. Now we have Obsidian Bases, and if you get the calendar plugin for Bases and the Kanban plugin for Bases, then you're pretty much set, and you can replace Notion, Airtable, NoCodeDB, any of it with Obsidian. Cool. And they also came out with the importer, CSV importer, and that wasn't around when I moved all my stuff over to Obsidian, so I had to do it all by hand. Now with that importer, it was pretty seamless. I actually imported something recently, and I was pretty impressed. It was super seamless, and I was able to get everything in there super quickly. I was like, okay, awesome. I don't have to worry about it anymore. But besides that, it's like, okay, well, you have importing, so you can actually move everything over. What about other data sources? Well, you can't really do email, but I just did that manually. Cool. The web clipper is actually really good. It's way better than Notion ever was. I do have issues with it where, like, at some points, I'll open up a page, especially if I open up a whole bunch of new tabs at once. I try to click the web clipper, does nothing. So I have to refresh the page. And sometimes I have to refresh the page a few times before the web clipper actually activates. Don't know why. But it's just frustrating, but you just refresh enough times and it works. But besides that, it's actually pretty great. You can even have templates involved and tell it to go to certain parts of your vault. Amazing, based on what URL it is. Okay, so input is great. And there's other plugins like the RSS dashboard. I wish the Read It Later plugin was still good. It used to be really great. Somehow it just broke and hasn't worked for a lot of people, including myself. So that was nice. You could just do like Alt-A and then save an article immediately. Doesn't really work, but RSS dashboard is pretty great. And then on top of that, the web clipper, you pretty much covered all your bases. So you have the CS import, RSS dashboard, and the web clipper. You have all your input well. Now let's output. How do we produce? Well, I don't even touch the like Ghost or Digital Garden or Twitter or Mastodon, all these different, or even Substack at this point, all these exports you can do. There's already a ton of those. That's amazing. There's already some really great options if you want to use your Obsidian Vault as a publishing engine. And maybe I should. Maybe that might be a great way to increase my automation stack if I really wanted to do that. But I would have to probably separate my content planning from my main vault to really keep it safe and keep it really effective. But that's kind of interesting. There's even like a basis plugin in the beta tab where it kind of treats it like a CMS, which is really interesting, and have tags and different organization levels. So that's kind of cool. And so the idea of like production, that's also there. Okay, let's talk about time management. Well, you have Pomodoro, you have various calendar plugins. If and then they work. Oh yeah, there was another one that came out too that was kind of integrated with a web tool. I need to try that one again. Zenday or something like that. I wish I could remember off the top of my head. But that might work a little bit because it is technically two ways. But essentially, I think what they're doing is like an electron window within Obsidian, which I don't know if that's great because then it doesn't really integrate deeply with Obsidian, which is what you want. You want to have something that integrates with the Obsidian world and your outside world without having them separate. And Morgan Calendar doesn't really quite do that either. So there's really not that much wiggle room when it comes to calendars. However, the calendar basis plugin does help me at least with planning my content. I just wish I could see it on my main calendar like you would with like Notion Cal. And so, okay, cool, there's that. Again, project management's there. There's plenty of task management plugins. One of which I'm kind of curious about is TodoSec, which basically kind of emulates LogSec's version of task management. And there's other options as well, like Todoist and Morgan and other various plugins that help assist that manage. And so I think that there's also alternatives as well. If you really wanted to get really crazy with task management, I just want something that will aggregate it for me, like the task board, something like that. And so there's that. So literally, there's like everything you need is in Obsidian. And you even have a web browser built into it, which means that like theoretically, if you're logged in Obsidian, which I kind of trust Obsidian way more than I trust Google or Firefox when it came to my data, that is a crazy aspect behind being able to have just Obsidian open. If you want to open up a YouTube video, you could. Technically speaking, you'll have to deal with ads. That's annoying. You could also have like a embedded Spotify player, although Spotify is also kind of hit or miss for some people. I actually left it recently too, so. But you could have a music player. You could have all these different stuff integrated into your Obsidian vault. So you could literally just have an all-in-one. You don't even have to leave. Like the context switching is what I'm talking about here. That's why you want something that's all-in-one, because there's no context switching. I think that's amazing. And it's such a fascinating concept that I wish more people were talking about. So literally, that's what this video is about. I might even post this video to Reddit just because I really want people to talk about this. How can we make Obsidian into the all-in-one tool?